on, guys? This is Mr. Teej66's Movie Reviews. I am Mr. Teej66. Tonight I am joined by a special guest.
I'm Nyx, the resident witch.
And very appropriate, because tonight we are reviewing... tonight is the 20th anniversary of the release of 1999's The Blair Witch Project.
I'm so scared right now.
Actually, yeah, it's a pretty creepy movie. We both remember when this movie first came out in the summer of 1999. It was a big deal. I mean, the internet was a relatively new thing. It really hadn't been around. I mean, it had been, but it hadn't really...
It was around, but it wasn't ubiquitous yet. It
yeah.
wasn't in every home.
And it was this movie, as pretty much everyone our age probably knows, this movie was one of the first films to really utilize the internet in a very creative way. I never really went on the website before the movie came out. I don't know if you ever did.
I was on it with a group of friends.
Okay.
I had a friend who had the internet.
Okay, so you were watching, because they had a bunch of, because for those who don't know, this movie, when it first came out, was portrayed as being a true story. I guess we should probably explain the story. It's very simple. Three student filmmakers go into the woods in pursuit of a local legend called the Blair Witch, and are never seen again, and are just never heard from. And a year later, as the credits at the beginning say, their footage was found that they recorded, and this is supposed to be an account of what happened, the things that they filmed themselves, and scariness ensues, and people actually believe this was real. And I admit, I was one of the dumbasses who thought it was real. I don't know how the hell I could possibly have thought it was real, but I did. I don't know if you...
Before I saw it, I thought it was, because as far as anybody knew it was, there was, no one had...
You really did? Wow, you seem very smart. You seem like you would not fall for that, oh, please.
Because at the time it was just... these kids went into the woods and somebody killed them.
Mm-hmm.
And they found the footage and it seems like maybe a witch did it. That wasn't that implausible had you not seen the movie yet.
I suppose so, but anyway, even on their internet movie database, profile or their profiles and stuff, they said deceased, yeah. And
presumed dead.
Yeah, Heather's mom apparently, the main girl in the film, her mom got sympathy calls for months afterward, and people really thought it was real. And then eventually the bubble burst, and of course it's not real. And this movie got some real hate when it first came out. I mean, some people love it, some people hate it. Even to this day, there are people who just loathe it and think it's one of the worst movies ever made. I freaking loved it the first time I ever saw it, and to this day, it's one of the most unnerving films I've ever seen. And I think the main reason is because it doesn't really, it avoids so many horror movie cliches. There's no jump scares. They hear creepy sounds in the woods, and you keep expecting something to happen, and nothing does. And that just makes it so much more disturbing, because you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and nothing happens. And
I thought it was scary. I thought it was good. I actually saw it when it was still in limited release. I was in Sarasota at the time, and me and my boyfriend at the time went to go see it at Burns Court Cinema, which is a very small cinema. I mean, the screen in there is probably not much bigger than a rich person might have in their house, and with just 2 rows of 5 seats each. And so it was a very small, very intimate room, and yeah, it was scary. In fact, I have kind of a funny story. Me and my boyfriend at the time, Nick Brown, had gone to see it, and we were supposed to go out to Mayaca Valley Ranches, which is the more rural area of Sarasota, and go camping in Mayaca State Park afterwards. And he was straight up like, no, not doing that now. I'm scared. Interestingly enough, Nick is also on YouTube now. He has a site called Lore Crafter, where he sculpts Game of Thrones characters and other popular pop culture characters. So shout out to him. And I just outed you for being too scared to go camping after the Blair Witch Project.
I remember the first night I saw in the Oneana 1 and 2, a local cinema, which is unfortunately no longer in use. And I remember I had to ride my bike home, and it's a small town. It's hardly creepy or anything, but there's fairly dark areas I had to go through, even though it was civilized, and I was pretty disturbed. I think another thing that helps was the fact that I've been camping, and so have you, I believe, right? And the woods are a creepy place. People don't understand. It's pitch black. There's nothing. You can't see anything. And it's not like a haunted house or an apartment or something where you can just run out and get away. There's nowhere to go. You're stuck. if there's crazy weird shit going on, you're fucked basically. Like there's no way out.
Well, that's why you become a witch. I think there's a Terry Pratchett quote about the witch should never be afraid in the woods because she should be sure she's the scariest thing out there.
And then we've got the performances, which some people say I think they're excellent. Like all three of the actors, because they're basically playing themselves. For those who don't know, I mean, this was the found footage movie that popularized found footage films. Even though technically it's not the first, there was an excellent film called The Last Broadcast. I don't know if you've ever seen that. It's sort of similar style. It's about three people go in the woods, but it's portrayed as an actual documentary.
Wasn't there also like a band one called like Mondo Cane or something like that?
I've never heard of that one, but there's another one from 1980 called Cannibal Holocaust.
Yeah.
I've never seen this film, but it's basically sort of similar. It's VHS footage.
That might be the one I'm thinking.
Okay. But yeah, that one technically was the first one, but this is the one that, of course, popularized it. And I still think it's one of the best examples of it because, for those who don't know, what they did was they basically, the directors would send the actors into the woods with the camera, so they're actually doing all the filming and everything. I mean, I don't know if they did, like, post-production, dubbing or anything like that, but they filmed everything. And at night, it was actually the directors who were making the weird sounds in the woods and, fucking with them, slapping their tent and stuff like that. And they would wake up in the morning and the directors would have little notes placed around the woods and would pick them up and they would it would be their direction for what your character is going to do today. And it just really gives it just this raw feel to it that, like, a lot of found footage films don't have. Even the recent sequel, Blair Witch, from just a couple years ago.
That wasn't very good.
I thought it was garbage. Yeah, it was awful. It just felt like a studio movie version of the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just bad.
I will admit that the sequel to the Blair Witch, the
Book of Shadows?
Yes, that's a guilty pleasure of mine. I know it's terrible, but I loved it. The other thing is that I think somebody already did a video on YouTube about this, but had Book of Shadows been cut the way that it was intended to be cut, it would have been a much better movie.
Because the studio forced the reshoots to add traditional horror elements like gore and sex and things like that, and they basically dumbed it down big time.
I wish they'd do a director's cut. I'm also a little biased because I was on the street team for that movie.
Street team? What's that?
I was on Marilyn Manson's street team at the time, and he was handling the soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I know that.
So
yeah.
being on the post-human street team, I also was sent promotional material for Book of Shadows.
I get what you're saying.
So I street teamed for that movie.
I gotcha.
It's my baby.
I
I'm just
see.
gonna back it forever.
And some people say this movie's scary, some people say this movie's not scary. I think to this day, it's still, even knowing it's fake, it's very unnerving. As I said, just the part that freaks me out the most, oddly enough, is where they wake up and start hearing children outside their tent laughing. That still gives me the frickin' willies to this day. That
the scariest part for me was when she unwraps the little package that she finds with body parts in it.
And you're never sure what it is. Is it his tongue? Is it an ear?
I thought it was an ear.
Some people even think it's his manhood.
Could be.
Yeah, it's vague enough where you just.
Well, that would be fitting with witch mythology.
Mm-hmm.
They supposedly stole Wiener.
I mean, and just the fact that you never see anything. That's what's so creepy. That's just so much more disturbing. Like when Mary Brown, the crazy person they interview, and she describes what she thinks was an encounter with the Blair Witch.
This hair.
Oh, that's disturbing. Like that, her description is creepier than anything they could possibly ever show you. Just strange. Her face was just strange looking.
Well, she herself was a bit of a scare. She's the type of woman that would have been cast as a witch back in that time. So there's an irony to the fact that she's telling the story about the scary witch when she's the modern day equivalent of.
Oh, I never thought of that. Oh yeah, she's got the wooden gate or whatever. I never thought about that.
She's kind of kooky and she lives sort of off the beaten path.
And apparently that woman was really like that in real life. Like that's not acting. She was really that kooky. But and then there's the story of the Rustin Parr, the serial killer who killed children in the woods. But it's all presented like you're not sure if you can believe it or not because the townspeople kind of laugh it off a little bit, like, oh, yeah, it's kind of funny. There's a few people who are like, they really believe it, but it gives it this verisimilitude where you're never sure, is it real, is it not real, what's going on? And, a lot of people are like, that's stupid, I want to know, because it doesn't follow traditional horror movie cliches, which I think pissed a lot of people off at the time.
Well, that's because Americans are lazy and they don't like to think.
Exactly, or yeah, exactly. No imagination. No, I just want the serial killer with the knife, murdering people.
They want junk food entertainment.
I mean,
It's cheese and A's culture.
Which I like that stuff. I can't say I don't like that stuff, but
Well,
is it good? Not really.
It's okay to enjoy a Big Mac, but that shouldn't be your entire diet.
Yeah, like this is a salad, I'd say.
If you can't eat a steak unless it's well done with ketchup, then you might like, big name horror movies better.
And there's actually a documentary on the DVD called Curse of the Blair Witch, which is basically it was shown on the Sci-Fi Channel, I believe.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Actually, and I remember, like I said, I saw it in Burns Court first, but I also remember the premiere of it in Sarasota. It's the Hollywood 20, the big theater, and the Sci-Fi Channel was there with a van giving away promotional materials for it.
Oh, cool. Yeah. What, they give away like posters and stuff?
Yeah, something like that. I think that channel was pretty new at the time. They were sort of promoting.
But it's basically like a documentary that details like how they disappeared, the whole legend of the Blair Witch, Rustin Parr. It's really disturbing. Like it's almost as disturbing as the film itself, I think. There was a surprising amount of products based on this movie. There were books. There were a couple point-and-click computer games. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember a little, like, coffee table flip-through book.
Like, it was a mini industry. I mean, they did a whole bunch of stuff. I'm trying to think what else.
Well, and that's something they lampooned in the sequel.
Oh, yeah. The first 10 minutes of the sequel were like, okay, this is actually much different. And then it just goes, after the first 10 minutes, it just completely falls apart. It was
meant to be a psychological movie about the unwinding of the one woman's brain and how it had a real statement to make about, people getting all wound up by something, sort of like almost as if there'd been a commentary on what happened with Orson Welles in War of the Worlds, like how people get all riled up and herd mentality and how you can trick yourself into being crazy. It was a genuine statement, but unfortunately the studio tanked.
Yeah, I haven't watched it since the theater, so I can't actually say I haven't watched it in so long.
That's one of my fun summer, viewing movies.
I see. But yeah, I mean, I think this is an absolute classic. I mean, I love it. People hate it, but that's too bad. I watch it all the time, and it's still incredibly disturbing. They're just, there are parts which just where they're running through the woods, and she suddenly goes, "What the fuck is that? What the fuck is that?" And you're just like, "What? Trivia fact: apparently, the guy holding the camera was supposed to turn left, and there was going to be someone dressed up as the witch. But he didn't do it, so happy mistake, because you're just like, what? It's just great. I mean, and the sound of their friend Josh, screaming in the background, help! It just fucks with your mind. I mean, really, the only reason this movie's rated R is for language. That's really about it. There's no gore, there's no nudity, there's just nothing. There's nothing really traditional horror movie about it. So I absolutely freaking love this movie. Rating-wise, I still give this movie a 9. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, whoa, are you kidding me? Yes, I really do love this movie. And you?
I'd say 8.
Okay, so we're basically pretty much on the same page here.
I think it was a solid movie. I mean, you can make the comment that the actors weren't really doing that much acting because they were really out in the woods and really hungry. But really, that doesn't really matter. The final product of what you sat and saw the first time you saw it before you learned the backstory or anything. Yeah. It was a solid movie. It was watchable. It was fun to watch before you knew what it was about. It was fun to watch after.
Just their breakdown with each other is so believable and so raw. The only flaw I can come up with is the part where he admits he kicked the map into the creek. That feels a little Hollywood. Like, oh, come on.
You haven't been on enough camping trips with grumpy people.
Apparently not. I mean, I've been on a lot of camping trips. I guess not. That just feels a little phony. Like, all right, we gotta have some way for him to get even more lost.
You don't know anybody who throws shit and gets pissed off and frustrated, especially on camping trips?
Not. I mean, I was a Boy Scout, but I never had anything that bad.
I know someone who threw his machete and had to spend a whole weekend looking for it afterwards.
Chucked it in the woods?
Got pissed and just chucked it off.
That sucks.
But I've seen people do stuff like that, and I absolutely believe that if you're pissed off, and the other thing is, people think that they're safe these days. No matter what, someone will save me, I will find someone will do it, someone will intervene. And they forget that bad things can and do still happen in the world, and people will just throw their their food supply, dump out their water, kick their map or whatever, and assume that something will come along to save them. And
Perhaps.
not
I mean,
always.
this movie's also, it's showing its age and with its the camera equipment they use. You know, Super 8 film and camcorders. Obviously, we don't have that anymore, and there's GPS, so it's probably a little harder to get lost in the woods nowadays, or cell phones and things like
and
that.
that's part of the reason a lot of horror movies today are set in the past.
And I mean, this movie's technically supposed to take place in 1994, and there really wasn't, or there were cell phones, but they were the big bulky kind that only rich people
had pagers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that, but I don't know how much of a signal you can get in the woods with a pager.
What are you gonna do with a pager if you get a page in the woods?
Like, help, we're in the woods. Okay.
You can send one out, but if you have a pager and you're in the woods, what are you gonna do with it?
Okay, so maybe the other flaws, that's a little dated, so a lot of the kids are gonna be like,
I wouldn't say that's a movie flaw, it's just age.
Yeah, well, look at the new one, Blair Witch, which was just awful. Like, that movie felt so scripted and so, written, and they showed the witch. I mean, they didn't show it much, but it was just so dumb at the end where he's like, don't look. Oh, I looked. Why? Why would you look? You're dumb. Or the part where she climbs the tree to get the drone. Why would you climb a tree to get the drone?
Well, as far as not looking,
so
that
dumb.
goes back to a biblical trope of, don't look back or you'll turn into a pillar of salt, and he does it anyway.
But I thought it was junk. But anyway, we should probably wrap this up. But yeah, fantastic movie, still watchable today. I assume you agree?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's it for Mr. Pete 66. Thank you, Nix, for joining me. And we will see you next time.
I see a dirty behind.